Okay, we will continue this lecture also on, start with again pressure integration technique. Okay, again I will bring back my previous slide that what we have done last class. See, if you look at this here, what it turns out is that if I carry out this integration, this part, rho z zi, see I define that by number of small ith facets. So I am calling it facet number, say 10, I equal to 10. So for this particular facet or surface mesh or panel, we call, many names are there. You can call this to be facet or mesh or panel, whatever, any name you can call. These are nothing but the small tiles by which you have, whose summation gives you the surface, or you have broke the surface into small tiny pieces. Now on each piece, the force that vertical component is acting is this. Now I know this, I know this, I know this. All I am going to do is that if I want to find the total, I just sigma it. That means I keep on going through a loop, read first one, do this, second one, do this, add them up. And if you look at that, you will find that what we are doing is that each of them represents nothing but this volume or this area. Now you see, I show an interesting case. Supposing there is a situation like, say, two-dimensional, say a body like that. Now you see here, when it comes to here these facets, you will see that you have added this part, this particular one. But when you come to, as I rotate, I come to this one, you see, you will find out that you have calculated this one, okay, and you will find out that by doing that, this one automatically gets cancelled out. Basically what would happen, this would, the normal here is inside, normal here is outside. These two are in opposite direction. So pressure acts here, pressure acts down here. No, in here you will get this much, in here you will get this much, and bottom one you will get this full one. So you see this part will give me this C. This part will give me minus of B, and this part will give me plus of A. So you see what is happening again. See, when I do this pressure integration here, this column is not good. Delta Si into Nzi for this one. Okay, if I do that, and into rho g of course, and Zi, if I do this, I get volume of this. Look at my hand, this much volume. That is C. When I came here, normal is other direction. If I did that, I'll get minus of B, this much. And if I come here, I'll get plus of A. And if you add them together, you will say you are left with actually this and this. If you are adding them, if you do C plus A minus B, you will see that you are actually left with this and this. So this unique part of this is that automatically only the intact part in a closed curve actually stays. In fact, one can show that if there is a closed curve, whichever way, if you carry out the integration, you will end up getting only the volume under the intact part. You know, this is very interesting, but you will see that you will only get that, because for every point other one this thing. Now you see the x direction. X direction, what happen if you take a panel here, it gives you force up to this much, and if you get a panel here, it gives the opposite force. So each pair, each vertical tube, if you think, cancels out. This is why you end up getting fx0, fy0, and fz becomes minus rho g into volume. You always get that. But the point is that what happens, see, in my hydrostatic calculation, I assume this to hold good, and then I try to find this by Simpson's rule. This is what we try to do in a ship, because we could define by section. Here we don't have to do. If you have the facets here, you directly calculate this part, and automatically you will end up getting this. Now question is that how many facets you need. Obviously what would happen is that if you want very accurate calculation, you will need many thousand facets. See, when it comes to a complicated semi-submersible like this is of course not all that. Say there is a leg coming like that, slightly See it comes down and matches here. There is a leg here. There are so many types of semi-submersible available. No, something like that. Suppose these legs are like that, tapered. So many types are there. Or there can be a semi-submersible donut shape with the legs coming out. Or there is a classical semi-submersible called triangular with legs coming out this way. Number of types of geometries are there. All these various kinds of geometry. Nowadays people are playing around with many geometries. There's the bell shaped geometry going like that. People are exploring various different kind of geometries. So all places it's easier to define them by facets. Okay, if you do by facets this surface panel, and if you do this integration, you directly end up getting the volume, but that is only volume. Let me now talk about little more advanced level about there are two more things, the how to get LCB for example, or LCG for example. Okay, now uh, let me take a ship example because you might be knowing ship more here. So this, let me take a facet here again. This is a facet here. Okay, now this particular facet has got a force. This force is given by rho g z. This is ith facet. Okay, zi into delta dsi. This is my this value into n. Let me call ni. When ni actually this will have three component because it is nxi, ny, nzi. Say nx. Let me call this as ni. See, remember that when I say ni, this is a vector. If you take x component of vector, you end up getting x force. If you take y component, y force, z component, z force. Or if you want, we can write it this ni is nothing but nx I, ny I, nz I. Now you see what happened. If now I want to find out, let me think, this is my x axis, this is my y axis, this is my z axis. I want to find out the LCB and VCB. That means z coordinate and x coordinates of this thing. Now what I need to do is to find out what is the moment of this force. This is my df about this axis. Let us say about this x axis. Now you see the general formula of a moment is given by r cross df, when r is this vector. Now this is a vector notation. Actually if you do that, you will find that mx becomes r, rather r has got x, y, z component. It will become y into df z minus z into dfy, like that. My will become like that. See, it will all be in terms of this x, y, z of the point. See, this is my xi, this is my yi, and this is my zi. I know for this panel, this particular point, I know what is my x coordinate, y coordinate, z coordinate. I know the normal direction nx, ny, nz. Okay, therefore I can find out for this particular force what is the moment about any axis, mx, ny, nz. Again I do that and I just sigma it. So if I sigma this m, maybe I should show one of them. See, as I said, moment about this x axis will become y coordinate of this point into dfz minus z coordinate into dfy. What is dfx? Dfz is this value with nxz. Dfy is the same value with ny. In fact, I will just show you this see mx equal to r cross df. It is better to show this way, r cross rho g z, there is a minus sign there, okay, into n bar ds. Okay, this can be taken as minus rho g z ds, that you can take it out, r cross n. Okay, this can be taken as minus rho g z ds. R cross n is a vector, sorry, this is actually mx we are doing, so this is actually this cross the first point of that. This will become r is actually, if you do ix plus y, yj etc., this part, the first part for mx will turn out to be y into nz minus z into ny. If you do that, I am just writing it, assuming we can do it. Now you see, take the particular point, a particular facet. So I find out moment of that. See, m x for ith facet is nothing but rho g z of I delta s of I y I n z I minus z I n y I. Just do this sigma. You will get the total moment about x direction. That's all. Again, one line calculation. Now you want LCB. That means the what is the centroid? That will be mxi by the volume that we have done before. It may be difficult for you to understand now. It is maybe a little complicated, you might be finding, but I want to tell you that the concept is actually extremely simple, in the sense that if I draw it again, I am just drawing a number of times, that if I have an axis system here, and if you take any arbitrary pressure force here, as long as you know this force, this small force, this force is known because this force is rho g into z of that point into delta s into n. You can find out moment of this force about any axis because you know this distance r about any point. Now by taking the moment about this force about any point, you can get the net force of the moment of the force divided by the net sum of the force will give you centroid of that force, the resultant force about that axis. Like that you can carry on. So what happens is that as far as my programming goes, if I am dividing that into small pieces, yeah, each one is known. See, for each one, for each point now, what you know the geometry. That means you know the x, y, z coordinate of the center point from a reference line. We know the normal. Normal also is very interesting because if you have this plane facet, you know this point, this point, this point, this point. Okay, 4 points. Now you see, if you take this vector and this vector, cross product it. In fact, it is so simple that if it is see x1, y1, z1, this x2, y2, z2, etc. This vector is going to be x3 minus x1 plus y3 minus y1 plus z3 minus z1. This is going to be x4 minus x2, etc. Do a cross product. By theory, the cross product is perpendicular to that, and that is the normal direction. If I have a plane here, I take a vector, I take a vector. Take a cross product of that, you will get a vector here. I mean, if those of you, those who are professional in naval architecture or traditional concepts are changing, you might find it difficult, but these are so much better methods. If you once get used to it, it's far more generalized method. See, now suppose there is a hole. Let me give how much of example that. Suppose there is a particular hole there. This has got hole. Some damage is there. Even this, if you have these facets defined, what would happen? This pressure will be acting like this. Take this out, you will get the damage stability. Because after all, if you think in terms of water yourself, in that I am a water particle, I only do is to push the surface. My interaction with the hull is only through the surface. I cannot penetrate, go inside. So I don't know. See, if there is this thing here, if I am like a fish here, all I am doing is to giving a tiny push here. I am not going inside, and this is all that is happening for hydrostatics. And my push is nothing but rho z into n. That is depending on the deeper the I am pushing the in the proportionally larger. That's all I am doing as a fluid particle. So this is the concept on which pressure integration came up. Now you see, let us see still more. Just one. So this to give me LCV VCV. Let us say water plane area. How do I get water plane area? See here, this is there, this is there. This facet. You see, water plane area is nothing but basically projection of this on this. That is this distance. What is this? This is nothing but ds into nz. This is nothing but ds into nz. Just sum them up, you will get water plane area. That's as simple as that. You see, all you are doing is taking a projection. See this, you think of it, there is a plane here. I am taking a projection of that in this plane, or in a 3-dimensional. I have got this small thing here. I am taking the projection of that, this will become this small, this projection. Yeah. So each one I keep on doing it, it gets added. Now you may say why they don't get overlapped? They can never get overlapped, because if now think of that. You may say that if I am adding this here, next one may be falling on top. You might think. Now what would happen? This will happen in a case like say this. This projection goes here. This next one projection may go here. Oh, sorry, this anyhow. But you will. Oh, no, I'll show that in the next diagram. See this projection, but how it can never go. Let us take a section like a bulb. Okay. Now there is a surface area. I am gone through this surface area. So this give me this projection plus water plane area. Now, so when I keep doing that, I keep on adding that. Now let's say I came here somewhere here, this part. This give me the same one, but with minus sign. So this minus that has got cancelled out. I come back here. This will give me again this projection. Theoretically, you can show that any closed surface, if you actually add them projection, you will end up getting exactly the surface area, not more, not less, always exactly the surface area. It gets cancelled out. So you see, it is a very interesting concept. You know that it is like a Cauchy there or whatever. You know, you are just taking this small projection. Just another one projection. You just adding them up. So that means delta S into nz of I sigma give you AW. No. That is up to pre-calculated means when there is a geometry there. First job for a user would be to define the surface and break it up. You have to break it up into small pieces. We have to. I'll give that example later on. Or let us say right now say I have a box here. Box type body. What I will do, I can divide that by some 100 lines, this by 100 line, and get the small pieces. I can divide that by many pieces and get the small pieces on its surface. There are many programs which actually makes this surface panels, you may call, or facets, you may call, whatever. Many programs are available, because that way what happen, you are actually doing like a CAD simulation, whatever, a surface. You are defining the surface by means of small pieces. See,
this is normally done by a software.
Yeah, but that sophisticated software have been written. See, if you see, many places you might have seen some architectural design of this globe, but they are made of flat pieces. See, you see some hemispherical globe is there made by some. They are all small tiles added pieces, small flat pieces. You will find it many places. Same thing. You are now reverse. I have this given. I break it into small pieces. Then if you do that, everything comes out. Let us see the next part about how to find I or LCF, for example. See, another that question comes. There is a shape here, this bigger. Now I have taken this facet. As I put it up, I have this. What is this part? This part is rho g, your delta Si into nzi. This is this part, because this is the, see, this part is nothing but rho g. This is my, oh sorry, no, rho g is not there. Delta, this is delta Si. This is my A of this ith point. Now you see, I know the x coordinate of this point, that is xi. Now again, if I want to take LCF, I have to take the moment about xi, so I do this xi and do sigma. This will give me my longitudinal moment. Okay, see, another point. Now I have a facet here. Okay, now this facet has this point P, which is located at xi, yi, zi. That means this distance is xi. I take its projection here. What is this area? This area, as I say, delta Si into nzi. Nzi is of course the normal at this point. This is this area, hatched area. Okay. Now what is the distance of that from x-axis or from y-axis? From this axis is, if I want to take moment about this line, I want to take moment about this line. Okay. What is the distance of this from here? It is xi. So multiply by xi. That will be the moment of this about this line. Integrate them, you get total longitudinal moment of water plane area. Divide by water plane area, you get LCF. So because you see you have got what is happened, think of this part, if I draw this now a water plane area, I have got this tiny bit. I know the location of this, I know this distance xi, I know this distance yi, I also know this area ai as equal to delta si into nzi. I know all that required things. So if I want to take moment about this line, I can always take this into the xi distance. If I take moment about this line, similarly, if I want to find out say I y y, that is I about y axis, all I have to do is to take ai into xi square, sum them up. That's it. And if I want to take about this line, all I do ixx is ai into yi square, sum them up. You see, if I take this square of that from this line, add them all up, each of them, then I've got moment of inertia about this axis. If I take square of that about this, I get. So you see, everything is available just like that. You think about it afterwards. You know, this may be a bit too fast for you, but the thinking is very tantalizing, especially those who are in profession. It's a different line of thinking, but if you get the picture in your mind, it becomes very interesting and appealing thing. And normally now when we are writing hydrodynamic program, this we are defining by facet. If you have defined by facet, just about 15 lines of coding, you get the entire hydrostatics.
Program also very
Yeah,
less.
do I equal to 1 to this thing, ai is nzi into this, sum them up, you get. It becomes the problem is in defining the hull shape, faceting, you know, like getting the shape. And if you want to don't like it, make smaller and smaller facet, you know, like you have to make very small ones. There are programs available, but if you can do that, there is no problem at all, you see. And not only that, as I said, damage and all inside component also can be defined by facets, then that part of pressure can be taken out. How? Because you see, if there is a shape here and if this part gets damaged, what it means is that the pressure that was acting here, now you see here initially the pressures are acting here in an intact shape, is all inside, but here you have removed that, means this pressure, suppose it is equal to saying that pressures are acting here and this is not acting, which means there is an equivalent pressure acting this side, because these two will make this 0. Net will be. So you take this full pressure facet, take the full surface facet, add them up, you will find that that thing is come out automatically, because this thing is going to give a pressure here, 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 and here. You add them up, you find the force on net force on this hull, net force because of this. Add these two up, you will get damage stability. I mean, straightforward hull with this. See, if you think, you know, it is very generalized it. Okay, this is a I mean there are many more things on the pressure integration, probably I won't talk about it, but this is a basic concept of pressure integration, is that you are taking small pieces on the hull, assume the pressure acts on, not assume, that is what is happening in nature, all you are doing, add them all up and just think what water is doing. You want this water plane area, take a projection on the water plane area. You want the volume, take this projection, add this part, you just tubes, you keep on adding, you get the volume. You see, you want moment, take this project force into the moment of the force about R, add them up. Everything is becomes very straightforward. So I don't expect that you would in this class get everything, because it might be a bit too fast. One has to do some examples, but I wanted to at least in my this hydrostatic tell a little bit about this pressure integration philosophy behind it. Okay, and the reason it becomes important, again I will say that is because in the case of your this offshore type of structure, unlike in a ship where we are always assuming stream is very small, always we assume, and this is implicit in all our calculation methods, may not be holding good here. That is why we always say the shape has trimmed and then it has healed, because stream is very small. But in offshore structure, you have the bias, what is called the two is same. And second thing is that is why the worst scenario may not happen. You see this offshore structure plan form there, it may not have a rolling about this, pitching about this, it may happen some other axis system. The worst scenario may happen about another axis system. It may not be necessarily, you know, you may have up to 10 degrees stable here, 10 degrees stable here, but 10 degree, but another line may become unstable.
Cylinder type is hanging in
Yeah,
in
Yeah, so so it becomes, and that is why for this kind of calculations where orientation is there, best is to actually define them by surface classes, because after all, if you have this structure, there is no sections. You cannot take sections, you cannot take this thing and all that stuff, isn't it? You cannot take the section type of definition. You cannot take small. Even if you take small section, there can be section coming like that. Sudden change may be there. You know, see water line here, water line there. There's sudden change, drastic change. So you cannot do that. Okay, this is one of the reason why we have to uh, talk about pressure integration. No, this is pressure integration. There may be other techniques, but this is the most general technique which is used. Second thing is that almost all advanced hydrodynamic codes that you will need for offshore structure, for wave loading especially, offshore structure has to stay in one place, and they have to be I mean designed for a wave load. They have to make sure they don't move up and down too much, because then you cannot drill anymore. All that requires hydrodynamic analysis, which requires a facet description, and if you have them, you can do hydrostatics more easily. Unlike in a traditional ship, what we talked all along the class is a traditional hydrostatic calculation. One more reason is there, that hydrostatic calculation for ships emerged, or the need was there for long back, maybe 100-150 years. That time the knowledge was also less. Offshore came in 60s and above. By that time, numerical knowledge has become much more. So as a result, when the methods for offshore came, it was more advanced methods.
So this drilling, how they do, if the platform is floating like this, so this jig, how they are passing through this
No,
pole?
no, no. That's why they have a hip compensation. And see what you are saying. Suppose this thing is floating here. There is a drill. This C here. See, this is first of all flexible. This is a flexible riser. It is not fully rigid, you see, like a pipe. And this technology, I don't know, but this technology is very complicated how they drill here. Problem is that all of them can drill only for certain amount of excursion, maybe 4 meter or so. Goes too much, it cannot do it. Goes too much away, this cannot do it.
These are the drilling pipes.
This is a riser,
Riser.
and this will be the mooring lines for making it stay in place.
They can stabilize it by adjusting these mooring lines.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, but that's not easy to adjust. How will you keep on adjusting? It's fixed mooring lines, you see.
So there is a certain limit beyond this.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They cannot.
Obviously, they cannot do. They cannot. That is why the semi-submersible concept came. Why semi-submersible? You know, this interesting concept is that, look, you need to reduce AWP for low this thing, but you need to increase I because of safety, stability. So what you do is that reduce AWP by taking two parts, make them separate, like in catamaran hull. So I goes up, A comes down. But I need buoyancy. Where to get buoyancy? Put this buoyancy chamber below. Why? Because when the wave comes, they give the excitation mostly on this area. So the part which is exposed to wave is less, so it doesn't heave much. You see, think of a flat plate, just a plate, just a small plate. Wave comes, plate will simply stay, water will go up and down, because it has no bottom to push up. Okay, so if you reduce water plane area, the hydrodynamic force is less. This is the full principle behind semi-submersible. That is,
As this is submersible, this part which has more area,
yeah,
so it will not affect it.
exactly. Now you need a buoyancy. So this is a pontoons give buoyancy. You need low water plane area, so you make this like that. You separate. This is why it's called column stabilized semi-submersible. You see the word column
Stabilized, yes.
stabilized semi-submersible. Why semi-submersible? Because the main part is semi-submerged, not fully submerged, semi-submerged they call this pontoon. Stabilized by columns. That is the idea, that is why it came. So that the heave is very less, so that it does not go up and down. You know, that is the reason. But now the question is, we will talk about this in our next this thing. Now I want to talk about little bit regarding some typicality of this. I hope this doesn't show up. This is what all extra facts you should take for stability calculation. Number one, mooring line. What I am saying is that what is an additional thing that you require to consider when you want to do stability calculation for a semi-submersible. Say there is a semi-submersible. water line here, mooring lines. It is healed. You see, what is happening is that this is a mooring line, gives a force here. These are mooring lines. Why it comes? Because you know, when we did the stability calculation earlier, we had only hydrostatic force balancing the mass force. Everything should be, I mean, total zero. But in here, there is a mooring force. This mooring force has two components. One is this side, one is this side. Oh, sorry. We can, one is this side, one is this side. You know, you can say this side and this side. You see, if you will see that these two component, this one and this one, has a lever arm so much. They tend to, see, this is pushing here, this is pushing here, tend to stabilize it. The mooring line tend to stabilize, but this force is normally not very high. Now this, what does this force do? Now this force can be considered, as far as hydrostatic goes, as if there is a weight hanging at these points. See, this vertical, this is a, through the contact point or whatever these points, as if we have added the weight here. Because you know, this force, this downward force, see, weight is acting downwards through G. These two forces will also act downwards. This will bring down the effective G. If it is lower, if this is higher, then it will bring up the effective G. Therefore, from the stability point of view, if the anchoring point, mooring point is at a low line, at this, it will have a stabilizing effect. If it is at the higher points, it will have a destabilizing effect, because higher points will think as if you have added weight here. You get my point. See, we have seen earlier that if there is a ship here, and you know, if you add a weight, CG goes up. If you add a weight here, CG comes down. The effect is exactly the same. These two are as if this tension that you have to calculate for certain excursion, that tension will come from the stiffness of the mooring line. Every mooring line will have certain pre-tension and certain stiffness. Stiffness meaning you can find out that if I pushed up by 1 meter, what is the force coming on that? Okay, that is the standard spring stiffness, required stiffness, that you would have done spring force. So that you would know. Now this spring force will behave as if it is acting as a hanging load as far as stability is concerned. This part of forces also has a stabilizing effect. Normally, for being conservative, most of the societies, regulatory bodies recommend that don't use them, because they are anyhow going to help you make it more stable. So for worst scenario, don't consider them. But what is important here is therefore that mooring line causes a factor as if it is trying to push down, or the mooring line forces to be considered as a hanging load. You cannot ignore them, they are there. Okay. So this is an important point that you remember, that mooring line has to be taken into consideration. Let us say in a TLP. Okay, let us say in a TLP. And TLP, I was telling TLP, if I draw a two-dimensional TLP, I mean, just section drawing, TLP looks something like this. You see, there is a deck here, and there is a tether by which it is tensed. Suppose its tension is T, weight is W, buoyancy is B. B becomes W plus T. You see, the tension plus weight balances the buoyancy. The tension is pushing down. No, there's so much tension there on this or whatever. Both sides tension. Now, obviously, this tension is acting through this point. So it is as if this part is an additional weight. So the G comes down. See, the weight is through G, and this rest part is through this. So if you see that in a free body diagram, I have got here T acting here, G acting here. So the net G plus T will act somewhere here. and of course B will act wherever this may be the B equal to G plus T. This is my G plus T acting. So it is like large amount of weight added at the bottom. See, a tension leg platform can never capsize because it is like so much of weight you have added at the end. Yeah. So you are sort of adding see as if see this is equal to saying that you have got amount of weight T added here, as if so much of weight you have added here, because you are adding giving the force at this particular action point. So naturally the center of gravity comes down very much. In fact, it also helps the idea of TLP, of course not stability, it also helps not to sway. You see why now TLP came, same reason, you don't want it to go up and down much because the razor is coming, okay, therefore you want to keep it taut down. Not many TLPs have been built in the world, probably two, but you know, the famous was Hutton TLP. But from hydrostatic point of view, these additional forces are to be considered. Okay. Then let us say this. There is another thing called many people talk about is this articulated tower and all that. You see, there's articulated towers or something like structures hinged here, which can actually be under, you know, wave load can go up and down. They are actually hinged at some point. Now they normally will have some kind of a buoyancy chamber at the top. See, there will be a point here through which it can, you know, it is swiveled. As the wave comes, it can actually, to reduce wave force, it can just follow that. But for this again, what happens is that normally buoyancy chambers are given on the top side, so the center of buoyancy is here, center of gravity is here. The reason buoyancy chambers are given on the top, you can see from here, if I have a buoyancy chamber on top, it is not a very good diagram, but you know, this buoyancy will act through this, gravity acts through this, and this will always tend to have a stabilizing effect. So you will always find that they will always have a kind of a buoyancy chamber on the top side. You cannot have a bottom. Why? It is like a submerged vehicle. You want to make sure B is above G. See, B must be above G. This is also one of the production platform offshore. See, actually it is not a correct diagram. The diagram will look something like articulate. See, it is something like they will be there. You know, there will be a, then some structures there, and ultimately hand here, and there will be a production platform with all this thing here. You see, why it is done at one time is because articulate tower is hinged here, because as the wave comes, it actually it is called compliant structure. It complies with the wave. So when the wave comes, it goes itself like that. So the force coming on that is less. To reduce the force, supposing wave comes here and moves here, the wave pressure is less here on that. Is to do that.
It doesn't oppose the wave.
Right. It does not, like a wall, does not stay there. Simply goes with the wave. Yeah. Come back, move up and down. Same idea what you have single point mooring tankers. See, as it this thing. So, but point from our point of view of stability, it will always have a sort of a buoyancy chamber on the top, so that the CB is above, so that it always, as it goes down here, suppose the wave came, it went here. Now there is no wave, it should not fall, it should come back. For that reason. Now there is another thing that is interesting. It's called wave plume effect. See, suppose offshore structure sometimes also do. Sometime gas. See, sometimes from some place, you know, the gas may actually sort of, you know, say there's an offshore structure here, some kind of an offshore structure. This is a drilling ship. Okay, what happened is that when they are drilling, there are sometimes what you call gas plume. Sometimes, because it is actually drilling at a point where a lot of natural gas oil is there, some point let us say gas started emerging out. So what will happen, this will actually go, you know, there will be a pressure. Most cases there is a destabilizing effect, because what happened, the water tries to rise here, and because of this gas the rho comes down here. You see that, because this is now this particular part, a lot of gas has come out, so the water has got kind of mixed type of thing, so the density might appear lighter, so that this thing sinks down, and because it goes up, if there is a wire here on this side, then you see see this line is fixed, the ship is trying to go up, so it will try to hill. But if it is on this bottom side, as it goes up, this actually hills on the other side. So you see the this effect has to be kind of considered depending on the mooring line here. If there is a gas plume there, you have to find out what effect it may have also on the stability for these vessels, and also that depends on the mooring line location. Why we are saying that? Because in offshore drilling platform, you have to ensure stability of the vessel under different scenarios, these different possible scenarios. This is another of the scenarios that may be actually sort of occurring. Just for the sake of mentioning, I am mentioning this. So the stability requirement for anyhow, I'll just go through this part now. In fact, say stability requirement. Say mobile offshore drilling unit, what they call FPSO, and various vessels. Okay, this is actually given by mostly by various, not IRS, I mean regulatory bodies, also societies like ABS, LRS, DNV, etc. There is yet no fixed rule as such, in the sense that lot of these societies have their own rules, more or less uniform, but it is still being researched. You see, one more point that is that I want to mention very critically is that for this sort of an offshore platform, damage stability necessarily must involve breakage of one of these cables. Okay, one side cable, because one side cable breakage or in a tension link one side tension snapping would cause it to be heeling and trimming in one corner. You see, because it will be both heel and trim, large angle heel and trim. Then problem is, another problem of this damage stability is that, you see, this water plane area is small. After all, water plane area is only this. Okay, so if there is a damage of this column, you lose a lot of water plane area in one side. See, this is a suppose we have this 4 column semi submersible. The top view looks like this, you know, the cross section A looks like this. Now suppose there is a damage, this gets flooded, then you don't have this restraining anymore, so it will again have a large effect. So what happened for this, the effect of damage near the water plane area is always large, because the water plane area components are small itself. See, if you lose one of them, you will lose 1/4 of A, yeah, of the 4, and not only that, equivalently 1/4 of I, 1/4 of BX, 25% of A and BM and all that. So you can imagine that there is a large change in the stability. This is why for this the GM and all are much normally GMT much larger than the GMT for a ship. It would be normally sort of more. This becomes an important sort of point. Okay. So like that, there are all the requirements there. Now I wanted to sort of I mean come to a different topic and try to end these lectures. Okay, I mean I am going to shift with a practical problem. I want to show you of a offshore operation. Okay, see, there is a consider a ship. There is a crane here. This is a problem actually. I wanted to do this just for the sake of showing you some practical see, the reason of my mentioning this, I'll tell you, is to give you a thinking about all our knowledge that we have done, how you can sometime solve a practical problem which is very practical. See, this is a pontoon, okay. There is a 250-ton weight is there, and this particular vessel's displacement is known as so many tons. Now, it turns out there's a problem that is given. What I wanted to say is that there is a weight 250 ton. The moment there's a crane here. This is the crane, so jib point here. You have this crane here and you just lift it. Okay. Moment you lift it, moment you touch it, the ship actually rolls to 2 degree. Okay. What does it mean? Now, there's a problem that is given is like that, that moment you take this weight up, the ship heels to 2 degree, and that is on this line, and then you take it and go outside because you are unloading it. You are obviously you are now swinging it on this side, which is 15 meter, and begin to unload on the deck. Moment you take it out, the ship's heel goes to 17 degree. 17 degree, and the question is that find out its original GM, that is GM initial. There is a problem. Why this problem is important? Why I wanted to mention, this is an offshore, you can say unloading operation, not really offshore, maybe from a pontoon unloading operation, docking type. It may happen, but see what happened in the first case when you have touched it up to what is this 2 degree? This 2 degrees angle of LOL. Moment you have actually shifted up, what happened? The weight acts through this, and so there is a raise of G. So what happened? You have got this G originally here, it has got raised to G dash. That means there is an M here, or see original M was here, okay. See, let us say initial G was here, initial M was, that is original GM. Moment you have touched it, G has gone up this much distance. This much distance is given by 250 into this distance 20. This is actually, sorry, this is 25 and this is 3. See, 250 into 22 divided by 12,000, something like that. It has gone up by that much. Now that has caused a negative GM. Now by this formula, that LOL formula, we have got tan inverse of minus 2 GM by BM is 2 degree. You can get one relation between GM and BM. We don't know yet GM. I have to find out. See, this GM is this new GM here. That is old GM, that original GM minus GG dash, or GG dash minus original GM. Okay, that is step 1. Now, did you get my point here? What we have done is again I will just try to show in a different. See, I have this line here, I have this line here. Initially I have got a G here, this is K here. I don't know, it has raised to GG dash. This much I know now, that is WD by this much I know how much it has raised. M is somewhere here. So this has caused a negative G dash M. Now tan inverse minus 2 this G dash M by BM equal to 2 degree. This give me one equation relating G dash M and BM. What is G dash M? G dash M is nothing but actually GG dash minus GM, if I call it M0, this and BM. This of course I know. That means I get one relation with this and this. One relation, I cannot solve it yet, you see. That's why the second part is necessary. Now second part says that as it has been shifted, it has gone to 17 degree. Now you see here, what is this? 17 degree is the angle where my heeling moment becomes equal to righting moment. Now righting moment is delta into ZZ, but ZZ I know is GM, no, this is wall sided vessel, plus it cannot be GM sin theta because GM is negative. Remember, GM is negative, plus half BM tan square theta sin theta. This into displacement is equal to heeling moment. What is heeling moment? Heeling moment is equal to, see that you have shifted that here, if you look here, shifted this 15 meter, that means heeling moment equal to 15 into 250. 250 ton shifted 15 meter outboard. So 15 into 250, that this weight into this distance, this moment. So if you equate that, this equal to healing moment, you get another relation of GM and BM. So you have got two equations, two unknowns, you can solve for GM and BM. This is how you actually can do. In fact, this is an interesting problem, very interesting problem. It shows the use of angle of law and use of wall-sided formula to actually do an offshore unloading operation. This is of course not in the main line of hydrostatics. I wanted to mention this because these are the problems, practical problems we did not do much in tutorial, but these are the practical problems you can think of. Even in hydrostatics, there can be, I have got a set of problems of actual problems of, you know, dimensions and all that built. Okay, anyhow, so this is the, as I said, not connected to pressure integration, just for the sake of showing use of a problem. So we will conclude our sort of lecture here, okay, with this problem. Thank you. I actually